Okay, so this is going to be the demo for wedging the clay and getting your pinch pots made for your owl. So the very first thing that you're going to do is take this clay that I give you, and it's going to be in a smaller piece, something like this. So we're going to get it into like a sphere, and once you have it into a sphere, we need to do something called wedging. Alright, so wedging gets all the air bubbles out of the clay, because when we get the clay, it comes from a factory, and in the factory it's tossed and turned in these machines, which creates the air pockets in here. If we work with the clay and there's all the air pockets are going to make the clay want to explode in the firing process, which means when we go to bake the clay. So we don't want that to happen after you've worked on it for so long and done such a great job. So we're going to go ahead and wedge the clay now and get as many of the air bubbles out as we possibly can. So when we're working with a small piece of clay like this, the way that we're going to wedge is just by taking our hands like this and we're cupping it, and then we're going to just squish the clay. We're going to do this for a little less than a minute. Alright. So as you're working with this clay, one thing that you need to know is that it's not like Play-Doh. It will dry out and it will become unusable. Alright, so the more that you touch it, the more that the moisture is getting pulled out of it. So I'm not sure if you can see on the camera here on my hands, there's a lot of water that's being pulled out of the clay. And so you need to know what you're doing with the clay before you start using it. Otherwise, you're just going to overwork the clay and then it's going to become unusable. Alright, so I think we've wedged long enough. I'm going to go ahead and take some pieces off. You can always do that if there's too much clay, and you're not going to have to do that. I do though, because I still had too much clay. Alright, I'm going to give you the right amount that you're going to need. Okay, so once we have it wedged, we're going to get it into that sphere again. Alright, now once you have it wedged, you don't ever want to take clay and put it back onto it and squish it up again. Why? Because you're adding air pockets to it. So if you ever do add another piece of clay, you have to re-wedge it again. So right now we're good, we have a sphere, and so we're going to go ahead and do the next part, which is we're going to make a pinch pot. So I'm going to take my hand, my left hand here since I'm right-handed, I'm going to cup my ball of clay here, and then I'm going to take my thumb from my right hand and I'm going to push down into the ball. Alright, now when I do that, I'm not pushing all the way through, okay? If you can see that, it's not all the way through. But I'm going to push down pretty deep, okay? And then what I'm going to do is push out with my thumb. Okay, so it's kind of like this. I'm pushing out with my thumb, and with these fingers I'm going to go around and make like a cup shape or a bowl shape. Hence why they call it a pinch pot. Alright, so I'm taking my thumb and I'm pushing out, and with my other fingers I'm just kind of forming the pinch pot as I go. Now what you need to be careful of is that you're not going up here by the rim and pinching, okay? That's a no-no. Alright, if you pinch up here, you're going to make this way too thin, and then we're not going to be able to use it. So you want to stay down towards the bottom where it is thick anyhow, where there's a lot of clay, and you want to get that thinner. You want to thin out those walls. Alright, so it should start to look like this on the inside. Alright, so I'm going to keep going here a little bit, and if you're not sure if the thickness is right, that's when you're going to call me over and I'm going to check it for you. Okay, so I've done one, and once I have this one done, I'm going to do this, kind of tap it, make sure I have an even rim. Okay, if I don't have an even rim, there's a little trick you can do. You can take this, put it onto your tabletop, kind of tap it on the tabletop. Sorry if it's making the camera shake. And then you should have it more even. Now you can pinch just a little bit and even it out. You don't want this paper thin again, okay? That's the key thing though. You cannot go crazy with this and make it really, really thin. Alright, so there, that's good. Didn't go overboard. Alright, so I'm going to put this one aside. This looks pretty good. Okay, and then I'm going to get my other piece, and I am going to have to re-wedge, alright, because I'm taking from a big clump of clay. Now you're also going to have to wedge because I'm giving you 2 clumps of clay. And they should be about the same size, and if not, it's okay if they're off a little bit. Alright, so this is about the same size as what we had. So again, first thing we do is what? If you said wedging, great. We're going to wedge, and we're wedging because why? We want to get all the air pockets out. Alright? Air pockets are our enemy right now. We don't want those. Okay, so we're wedging for about a minute because we don't have a lot of clay here in our hands, so we're just wedging for a little less than a minute to a minute, okay? Don't go overboard. Don't want to dry out your clay. Alright, once you've wedged, then you're going to go ahead and repeat those first steps. So, next thing, get it into a sphere. Now, does it have to be perfect? No. When I made my first one, was it perfect? No. Okay? So I'm just kind of getting into a sphere shape. Ta-da! Okay. Now I take my thumb, repeat, I go through my sphere, okay, and then I'm going to push out with my thumb, and I'm going to do this all the way around until I have the walls thinner and even thickness. So my hands are working together here, thinning out the walls. I can feel with my thumb, you know, that it's still kind of thick down at the bottom of the pinch pot. So I'm trying to thin that out as much as possible. The reason why we need to thin this out is because, again, if the clay is too thick, that gives it a reason to want to blow up in the kiln. There's no, nicer way to say it than it's going to explode. Alright, and we don't want that to happen. So, we're going to try and avoid that at all costs. Alright, so I've gone ahead and evened this out as much as I can. And I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing I did with the other one, which is taking it like this and just kind of tapping. I'm going to press this a little bit just to even it out. Okay, notice I'm not pinching really hard, I'm just kind of evening it out, and this is a little off here, but we'll make that work. Okay, it's not going to be a big major problem. Alright, so there you go, there's the second one. Now what we have to do, and what I'm doing right now, because this is annoying me, is that it's too tall, so I'm just kind of tapping it. And this will help you reshape. Alright, so it just makes it reshape a little bit and get the form, hopefully, that you want. Alright, so there is the second one. Okay, now we have 2 of our pinch pots. Alright, now what we want to do is we want to go ahead and do something called scoring. We're going to do 2 things actually, slip and score. Okay, but we're going to score first. Alright, so we're going to score first, which I love to use a fork. Okay, most people will use what's called a needle tool, and mine's kind of dirty there, so there you go. Okay, needle tool. Needle tool is fine and dandy, it's a lovely tool, okay, but if you notice here, when you score, you have to rough up the surface. And so we're roughing this up because we're going to connect this one to this one, this pinch pot to this pinch pot. And so when I rough up the surface with the needle tool, it does a great job. It gets it nice and rough, alright? But it takes a long time, okay? So, I've found throughout the years, and with some of my colleagues, that a fork works just as well, and it works 10 times quicker. So we're going to use a fork. So with the fork, you're just going to go back and forth, all different directions, get it nice and rough. Alright, see that? And then you're going to clean off your tool. Just put that over here and make a little pile of clay goobers, as I like to say. And then get your other one and go ahead and do the same thing. So you're going to go ahead and score this. And scoring is not this. Scoring's not going like this. Sorry, I'm off screen. Not going like this. This is not scoring. Okay? When you score like this, you're not going to get any kind of roughness to it. And that's not going to help hold the two pieces together like we want it to. Because scoring acts as a zipper. Okay? If you think about a zipper on your hoodie, the zipper pieces come together, they interlock, and then it doesn't come apart. Okay, so that's how this is acting. Now, the second thing that we're going to do to help keep it together is we're going to add water to the tops here where we just scored. And that's going to be called slip because it's going to mix with the clay and it becomes a mixture called slip. So, it's like a glue. So we're going to just take our fingers and run some water over the tops here. Alright. And then we have to work quickly since they will dry, and we're going to put these two together. Okay, now my owl here is going to be a little bit big. I'm going to have you guys making him a little bit smaller. But that's alright, he's a demo owl. Okay, so after we get him together, oops, already calling it a him. After I get it together here, we're going to go ahead and smooth it. Okay, so that we have a head and a body. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just press a little bit. I'm not pressing really hard. I'm not pinching anything. I'm just kind of gently giving it a little bit of a push, just a little bit to help adhere it. Okay, barely putting any pressure. Alright, it's just going to kind of suction together. Alright, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take one of my smoothing tools, and at most of the schools we have these lovely green tools, okay, that you will have a choice to use, and at some of the schools we even have wonderful knives. Alright, I do prefer knives sometimes over the green tools. The green tools tend to want to break if you're not careful with them, but the green tools, obviously some of them have smaller edges, so that's also good for some details. So I'm going to start off with this guy here, and what you do here is you're going to help to adhere the two pieces together one more time by smoothing the seam all the way around. So we're going to go around, and we're grabbing clay from one pinch pot to the other, and we're smoothing it together. Now it's not going to look pretty right now. It's not the, that's not the reason why we're doing it or anything. The reason is to, again, keep them together. But we're just going to smooth it, the seam, so that they're joined. So that there's no holes where the two were put together. And close that up too. Alright, and then I'm going to clean my tool again, because again I can tell I got some stuff there. And then I'm going to just use my finger, kind of smooth. And there's a dent here, which I want, you know, because I want to see the difference between the owl's head and the owl's body. And I'm going to reinforce that shape here in a minute. Okay, so I'm going around here and just kind of smoothing that seam now together, even more with my fingers. Alright, so now that I've cleaned that up a little bit with my fingers, I have this lovely shape. Okay, now it's kind of oddball shape, but you can kind of see where it may resemble an owl. Hopefully from the angle that I'm showing you on the camera you can see that. Alright, and I'm going to go ahead and start making my indent a little bit more. So all I'm doing is I'm using my fingers, and you can actually use a tool also, like one of the green tools maybe, and you can do the same thing. That's fine. I like having more control with my fingers, being able to feel where I'm indenting the clay. And now just be careful with how much pressure you're putting, because again, this is hollow inside. You don't want to go through. Okay? So gentle. Do the same thing over and over again. You're going to get the results you want. So if you want it to go in a little bit, you might have to go over it a few times, but you'll start to see, you know, the shape that you want if you're patient. Okay, and then the last thing is that we're going to just smooth. Alright, so we got the head and we have the body. Alright, and I'm thinking that this is looking pretty decent, you know, for a shape. So from here I would have to add details, so that's going to be the next video. So before I go on to the next video, the only thing, like I said, would be to kind of smooth a little bit. So you can use your tools here, and you can use your fingers, just like we did for the crease, and just kind of go in here. And it doesn't have to be perfect at this point. Just want it, you know, a little bit smoother, so that when we go to add details on it, you can see where we're placing things. So if you notice, I like to use the tools first. It's a little tip I learned throughout the years. Use the tool first. And then go over it with your fingers, and it makes it kind of, you know, twice as smooth. So just a little tip. I would say stay away from using water. You don't need to use the water quite yet. If you do, you're just going to get a big mess, a big gooey mess, and then you got a chance that your owl is going to start to fall apart if it gets too wet. So right now, just work with your tools, work with your hands, just smooth, okay? And again, I would do this all the way around my entire piece. And it's looking pretty good, so I'm not gonna dwell on it too much here. Like I said, just kind of giving it a even flat basis for details to sit on. Alright, and that's it. That's end of the first video. So